Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Again, I'll have to keep saying it. It's an intro. You gotta keep it around. You can't change it. Even though I know, CC Live, welcome this morning. So, have you guys ever been set in your ways? Like so stubborn to the degree that you're really not coming back. Like you are set in your decision. No matter what, you're going to be right. No matter what happens. But maybe it's about an idea or something going on, or you're just always right. Now, I'm sure if your parents are listening in the background, I bet that some of them are saying, yeah, it's happened a gazillion times where stubbornness has gotten in the way. You see, for me, I can remember a gazillion times I've been right, but never when I've been wrong. Alright, maybe I've been wrong a couple times. You see, there was this one time my friends were in my room, and we were talking about the NFL playoffs. And I remember specifically, I was like, yeah, the Broncos, they're pretty solid right now. They've got Peyton Manning. This was a couple years ago. Like, yeah, they got Peyton Manning. They're going to do solid. They're the number one seed. I bet they're going to win it all. And my friends were like, they're not the number one seed. The Patriots are. And I was like, no, the Broncos are. And they were like, no, it's the Patriots. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're so totally wrong. It's got to be the Broncos. It's Peyton Manning. He's number one. And so at this point, I was like, Peyton Manning, he's going to get the bye. And I was like, what? I was like, all right, I in fact believe you guys are so wrong. I'll bet $10. $10. Easy money that the Broncos are number one. They said, bring it on. They shook on it. Okay. Quickly, went to my phone, began scrolling. And lo and behold, Patriots number one, Broncos number two. I lost the $10. And I remember in that moment feeling of like a lump in my throat of like, I was wrong. I had to admit it. It's rare to happen, but I had to do it. You see, in the Bible, we get to see a story today of somebody who changes his mind on something. And we really get to see where he thought he was right and something that he was going to commit to. And it turns out he was wrong. So the guy is actually Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples. But in this sort of the story, in our Holy Spirit series, we need to look at Peter and his life in Acts. So Jesus has already passed away. He's already resurrected. And at this point in Acts, the church is starting up. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, my friend Haley talked about the story in Pentecost where the Holy Spirit came down. And the story has a lot to do with the Jewish people, but what everybody else? Like, what about everybody else? What's going on with them? You see, anyone that wasn't associated with the Jewish faith would be considered a Gentile. And simply put, a Gentile is someone who's not involved with the faith or a descendant of Israel. So for me, I would have been considered a Gentile because I don't have bloodline relations to Israel. So at this time, the narrative is really Jews versus Gentiles. It's this rivalry, and Jews and Gentiles never are associated with each other. They don't like each other, they don't talk with each other, and they certainly don't eat meals together. And so Gentiles were considered unclean to Jews, to the point where Gentiles were kind of casted out. And there was really nothing that was going on. But, again, this is after Jesus had died and resurrected for everybody. So the statement of Gentiles being unclean and unworthy, there's no need for that. So in Acts 10, we read about this guy, this centurion named Cornelius. And his entire family were good and God-fearing people. So God, he sent an angel to them, and he sent a couple of men to go find Peter, and so he does. And so Peter is very busy at this time, and Peter is on this journey, and at this point, he's deciding to stop. He's traveling, he's been going good, and he decides to stop at noon. Not good afternoon, but just noon. And so he goes up to this roof and he prays, and this is what happens in Acts 10. It says this: he became hungry and wanted something to eat, and while the meal was being prepped, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven opened up and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. This contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles and birds. Then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "Surely not, Lord," Peter replied. "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time. "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheet was taken back to heaven. You see, the vision had wrapped up, that Peter had wrapped up, and Peter shows up to Cornelius' house, and once they're there, something crazy happens. Peter, with a house full of people, says, "You all are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with or visit a Gentile, but God has shown me that I shall not call anyone impure or unclean." You see, Cornelius and Peter, they share the interactions that they had with God together. And Peter, he was able to sit down with Cornelius and everybody in that household and really share the gospel with them. And on that day, they were all able to receive the Holy Spirit and be baptized. You see, this moment, it isn't just simply a time where somebody shared the gospel with somebody else. It's truthfully a historic moment because it's really one of the first times that we see the gospel getting shared with people, which then turns into them getting baptized and receiving the Holy Spirit. See, it's an amazing moment. Even for us today, it's an amazing moment. But this is how the church was started. You see, as we go throughout the series, there's this theme. There's this idea. You see, with all these stories, with all of these moments, there's a challenge that's given by God, a moment to decide, the Holy Spirit is to follow, and then the more people being introduced to the Holy Spirit. For us, this is super, super, super important. I mean, it's vital. The Holy Spirit isn't simply an emotional decider or a feel-good story. It isn't something that just sits in us and it's just, oh, I feel good, and so therefore the Holy Spirit's with me. You see, the Holy Spirit is one of the major vehicles, one of the major things to spread the gospel. You see, the Holy Spirit isn't something that you just feel all the time, but it's something you act upon a lot. And the Holy Spirit for you and for me isn't just about us. The Holy Spirit has always been a guide that's trying to go after people who don't know Jesus. And we have to be able to see that. You see, the Holy Spirit changes everything. The Holy Spirit changes everything, just like the gospel does. And for us, we need to know the importance of the Holy Spirit. We need to know the importance. You see, it guides us, it comforts us, and it leads us. You see, following that lead is the most vital thing. You see, Peter and Cornelius were able to follow the Holy Spirit. So can we. And all it takes is us saying, "Holy Spirit, lead me." So who is the Holy Spirit wanting you to lead to the gospel? Who is the Holy Spirit pushing for you to let them know the story of Jesus? You know, is it that sibling that's been resistant to who God is in their life? Is that the person at school that you avoid talking to? Or maybe it's someone at the store that just happens to say hi and you see the moment available. You see, the Holy Spirit, it's leading us somewhere, and we have to be able to accept that call. So this week, challenge. I want you to be able to find that person. Find that person that you can call upon, that the Holy Spirit is pushing you to let them know what the gospel is all about. You see, for us, we've got to know that that is important. The story of Jesus matters. See, guys, be Jesus this week.